What's going on, guys? It's Uche and Joku, Sneaker Principal. And in this episode of the Sneaker Principal podcast, I'd like to talk to you about one of the most heinous things that we do as school leaders, and that is going after people. Listen, this work is not meant for everyone. And what I mean by that is being a teacher, being an educator, working in a school, working with children, and even working with other adults in a space that tends to be very intimate. Because often what you're doing is you're not putting widgets together. You're not putting engine parts. You're not serving fries, or you're not. And I'm not trying to talk down to anyone because of what you do. I'm just saying it's not a mundane, put this together, step one, step two, step three. There's a lot of gray area. But you're dealing with children, you're dealing with human beings, and you're dealing with emotions. And so it's a very different kind of space. But also I know as a leader, often you find yourself in a position where you find yourself, my bad, I'm trying to put my socks on here. You find yourself, having to contend with a lot of things, trying to figure out how to get your test scores up, how to make sure your school is performing as it should, make sure you have the right people in the right places, like things like that, right? So, and it's stressful. It's very, very stressful, especially when people are not playing their part, not doing their jobs, right? So, and it comes to a point where the work is performance-based. You have to make sure that you can justify the results based on who you have on your team. And we do observations, we give feedback, we make sure that there is a plan for improvement in place for all our staff members. Even as a principal, I have an improvement plan that's put on me when I need it by my superintendent. And it's just part of the process. But what happens when that plan is not working, when this person that's in a position it's not panning out? And there's a tendency often for leaders to say, you know what, I'm going to go after their license. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to get rid of them. And I've never liked that. I've never really, when people say, yo, you got to get rid of someone, that bothers me to the core, because it's almost like you're talking about this person as though they're trash, something you can just pick up and throw in a trash can. And my thing is, no matter how incompetent or in need of growth or whatever the scenario is, it is a human being. So I got to figure out how to make sure that you have to figure out how to make sure that the message, the whys, the reasoning for there need to be a separation of this person from your school is one is done through a very good conversation from the beginning. If I have concern with someone about their performance, and I've been doing this long enough to be able to say, I need to have a clear plan, a pathway. I need to make sure I've given enough grace and enough supports to make sure that the outcome is one. If it comes down to having a conversation about, the possibilities or options of separation, that it's one that's grounded in information, in evidence, and not evidence in the sense of just, oh, we're going to go to a hearing to remove you, but a conversation where you talk to the person and say, hey, this is what's going on. Break this down for me. On this date, this time frame, we had these things, I've given you the supports, and having that conversation with them. Some people might say, well, it's not that simple. But for me, it is. It really is. Because I'd rather tell someone off the bat what's going to happen based on what's happened already and give them the option versus just going after them. Because again, some people have turned that going after like a sport. Let me call the union, let me call the legal team and do all these different things. And there are times where you have to do that. But I feel like, like somebody said, sometimes if you're in a position where you have to protect yourself, there's lethal force, and then there's that intermediary thing you can do between lethal force and where you are right now. It doesn't have to go from 0 to 1,000. It doesn't have to go from 0 to nuclear response. It can be a conversation and helping someone understand. And I'll tell you this: a couple of years back, I had a teacher who it just wasn't working out. Honestly, it wasn't working out, and observation, supports, and and some some really bad ratings. And again, these were ratings that were based on facts. Like literally, the teacher said, "Yes, you're right. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. Yes, I don't know why I didn't do it," and give this person several opportunities. And eventually, it got to a point where I had to come to Jesus moment and say, "Hey, this is not working out, and these are the reasons. You know, we've been working together trying to figure this thing out." And I remember this teacher tried to grieve me and said I was coming after her and all those other things. Okay, fine. So it got to the point where I had to go to a hearing. Got to the hearing, and there was other accusations made. I think it was just they were made to kind of like bolster her case, which were completely false. And when it came down to the hearing, myself, them, their union rep, the attorney, or whoever for the Department of Education, and what ended up happening is before we even started, she broke down and said, "You know what? I can't do this. Mr. Njoku has always been good to me and been very helpful, sat with me and supported me and given me guidance, and he's not in the wrong." And what ended up happening is me, this teacher, myself, and and the school, we parted ways. And years later, I ran into her, and she was like, "Oh, I'm teaching over here. I'm happy where I'm at." And then she told me, like, "You know what? That was the best thing that ever happened. Is that separation, that me saying that this wasn't working at this particular school, but it helped her understand that she was pursuing something in a space that wasn't conducive for her. She needed to work with a very different population and a different kind of space. And what ended up happening is she's much happier and she's having a much longer career. She didn't walk away from education. She just found something else that worked for her better. And I imagine what would have happened if I went after her and say, "I'm going to go for your license and you should never teach again." You know, there are kids out there that wouldn't be afforded the amazing teacher she is for them. And one other story, I had a teacher who was a PE teacher, same scenario. And it was a middle school, struggling, once cried in my office, this teacher, and he was like, he don't know what he's doing. And I said to him, "Maybe you should be an elementary school PE teacher and not a middle school PE teacher." Some people might have just been like, "Oh my God, you wasted my time. I hired you. I got to get rid of you." And I said, no, let's problem solve. Because yes, it puts me in a bad situation because now I find another teacher. But I was like, but you know what though? Maybe, and this was a new teacher still. I was like, maybe that's your best space. Fast forward 2 years later, he reached out and said, "Listen, I'm having a blast. I'm working at elementary school, and I just always thought I was a high school PE. I would be a high school PE teacher, but doing any jobs. That's why I worked for you is in the middle school. But the reality is, I'm really much better with the little ones. So again, I didn't go after him, and there were trust me, I had many opportunities, a few write-ups where I could have been like, nope, this is not working out. You're dangerous, da da da." But no, but I gave him grace. I addressed situations as they came up appropriately. But eventually, my job also was to analyze him as a gatekeeper and make sure that this person is in the right space. I've only met one person ever that I was like, this person should not be teaching, should not be in education, And again, I didn't have to go after them. They ended up quitting, after very deep conversations and very clear, like this is where things are headed. But again, I give them the grace of that conversation and give them the grace of that guidance as well, because that's part of it too. It's not just coming after someone; it's about guiding them. It's about being a mentor. Sometimes you got to mentor people out and say, "Listen, this is not working, and this is not why it's not working for you. These are other options." But yeah, I think it's something that we need to get better at. So, call to action. There's somebody listening right now who has somebody in mind in their school, and you're like, this person. I'm going to ask you to move from your attack mode and go into counselor, mentor, coach mode, and take the approach of coaching. Because again, that's your primary responsibility. And if the coaching you've done for improvement is not working, maybe the coaching is now maybe the coaching now that's needed is one that's based on finding the right space for this person. Helping them see, because then in doing so, the space is clearly not the school that you're at. Maybe you can help them find another school, and maybe the decision might just be, I don't want to do this. I'm not cut out for education. Sometimes people stay longer than they need to because they don't want to come off as though they quit. They don't want to come off as though they failed. But the thing is, it's better to find a place for you to succeed than to stay in the place that you fail. So this is my call to action to school leaders, and even those of you who are not school leaders who are listening. Maybe something I said help you coach yourself into thinking about a better situation for yourself. All right, y'all. Lieutenant Joe, Principal. I will talk to y'all soon. Be well.